Hi, this is Doug. I'm going to be walking you through my mind map assignment. Um, as you can see, I started in the middle here with the change methods, and then I took all of the 6 elements and made them branches here, and I'm going to walk through each one of the branches individually. I'd like to start with the system branch, and from the system I saw some recurring themes for the system. First of all, who the participants are. We looked at the stakeholders. Each of them had stakeholders, and the themes that I saw there were that there needs to be some diversity in the stakeholders. We need some creativity, creative stakeholders, and then authentic stakeholders as well. So people that are going to speak up, speak their mind, and tell the truth about what's going on. Also in the participants, I put a whole system view here. So we wanted to look at yourself, the individual, as an individual, their organization, and also community. So in doing change methodologies, you want a wide variety of participants that include the whole system of the organization. The second branch here with respect to the system is the design. So a lot of the methodologies talked about the cost, a disciplined approach to the design, and really looking at what the purpose of the design is. Is it a higher purpose, keeping it positive, and then getting into some of the potential of the process as well, or the methodology. So higher purpose, positive outlook, and then what is the potential driving at that. As far as the roles in the design, there were obviously a facilitator, and you're going to have a lead facilitator, someone that leads the process, and then a graphic facilitator. And one of the methods that I looked at also was dynamic facilitation, and so you have this lead facilitator that does most of the work in that process. Also, you got this core team, the leader, and a team that supports the leader as well, and then another role is the sponsor. So those were the things that emerged from the system. I now want to look at the purpose, and from the purpose branch I've got complexity. So a lot of the methodologies looked at complexity, and it's either simplifying that complexity or looking at the diversity within that as well. Also in purpose, we looked at change, so some transformative change, learning and adjusting within that change, and then looking at an issue and looking at what are some underlying causes for the issue, maybe doing root cause, and then maybe even just trying to clarify what the issues are. So looking at the purpose there of what we're doing. Also in the purpose, I looked at potential. A lot of that came up, that we wanted to uncover potential as a purpose, and that seemed to be a theme in these as well. Another branch off of that I put as systems thinking, of that whole system again. It seemed each one of them came back to that. And under that I put the group, the collective, and a connection. So each of those talk to the whole system thinking. And then last on that branch was purpose. So what were the results that you're trying to get from the methodology? And some of them that I pulled out from here: increased memory, remembering what was going on, the increased motivation, and motivation to implement what comes out of the change method. some collective intelligence, group intelligence increases as well. Increased engagement comes out of the methodologies, and continuity, so building continuity into the process as well. So that's the purpose branch. I'd like to look at the journey now, and on the journey I had starting with planning. So a lot of the methodologies looked at the planning, the organizational vision. What is the vision? What is the education of the organization and the stakeholders that needed to be done? And then the preparation. What preparation needed to be done? Here it says research, assessment, and willingness. So are the participants willing to participate? Is the organization ready? What research needs to be done in it? And how are we going to assess the results? That's all part of that planning branch. If we look at the control branch, and this was on the journey, it really talked about whether you maintain control. Some of the methodologies talked about maintaining control. It was important to follow it exactly as it was. Some of them said you really need to allow control. You need to allow people to go where they're going to go. And so the third branch here says appropriate control. So sometimes you maintain it, sometimes you allow it, or you kind of go with the flow and you intervene as needed. So that was an important branch. On the journey, we looked at success. Freedom seemed to be a theme that came up over and over, and then embedded. So how able is the organization to embed the practices, the solutions, and the policies that come out of the method. Also on the journey, we looked at facilitation. So this was the way that you go about facilitating this method. A lot of them said no decisions. So the facilitator doesn't make decisions. It's not a decision. Facilitator listens, respond to all voices, hear all voices. The facilitator is respectful. The facilitator welcomes the shifts that go on in thinking, recognizes that shifts are going to happen and goes with those. Looks at the different alternatives and goes with some unexpected things that are going to go on. So you need to welcome the shifts, welcome the unexpected, and welcome the alternatives that come up there. And last, and you'll see in my paper that I think this is actually should actually be one of these methods that we look at, but sustainability. How do you sustain what happens at these change programs and when you implement, making sure that it is sustainable. So the action needs to be urgent, it needs to be clear. What comes out of these, you need to make sure that you take action on it. And then communication is so vital to sustainability, communicating the status, the urgency, the support that's needed, and then I have time down here as an enemy. So making sure that it's done quickly and you're communicating where you are and where you're going. I want to go to the evidence branch next, and on evidence I've got several different branches from the evidence, first being understanding. So understanding what's happening, what's being created, the complexity, the new, the process. Here I have heart, and this was a term that I labeled it. What I saw was happening with them was that heart seemed to be a theme. So the evidence had to do with this being an authentic process and getting at the core or the heart of what's going on. the core factors, the things that give life to the organization and so on, those were key to all the methods. Also, getting back to the best, the best of what is, the best of what might be. So those were themes that arose from that. Also looking at the collective. So from the evidence, there was a lot of this theory of the collective wisdom, the theory that the collective creates the future, and so those were themes. And then last, there were several about chaos, that this chaos is needed in order to create. And so sort of living at the edge of chaos, and the chaos creates this commitment, and it creates an encounter with the positive together. So those were all themes that came from the evidence tab, or the evidence one. I want to go to values, and under values, if I can get my computer right here, I'll walk you through the values. First, seeking answers. The answers that we're seeking are an expression of the ideas, the asking questions, using images to understand what's going on currently, and images of the future, especially appreciative inquiry talked about images of the future, and so did several of the others. So using these positive images to understand what's going on currently and in the future. And also seeking answers to where we choose to study and where we choose to move. So a lot of it, to me, it was about what questions we ask, and those first questions asked drove the process. Also a value of responsibility, responsibility to collaborate, to take responsibility, and to get the right people in the room doing the process. I also had a theme of congruence, so the principles of congruence, so inquiry, change, learning. Under execution, I have effective execution for both the team and the leaders. So that all came back to this congruence principle. Under values also, I got the value of control. So similar to what I had in the journey, but allowing control, allowing time, allowing it to flow properly, following control, following the energy of the participants, also seemed to be a value in a lot of them as well. And then keep going back to this whole system that keeps coming up, this whole system value of studying the whole and studying the details, and then having that transparency that is needed, and the whole system creating the conditions so that the whole system can participate in this as well. My last element here is the models, and this model that words create worlds, this was a central theme throughout the entire project that I saw, that each one of these 8 methods had their own words, own language, and those languages created the world that the participants were going to live in, and how things worked. Also in the models, the process, models of different process models, and also a theme of diverging and converging. So a lot of the times you had to get a diverse perspective and topics that diverged, and sort of funnel them back into a convergent topic. Also, the use of imagery in these, the use of different thinking models, and what images are used to create that. I also saw a lot of balances struck in these models. dynamic